Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Conservative Corner. I'm Elliott Margolis. I'm here with my guest, Janice Magno, Dr. Janice Magno. And this is a part two of the show that we did last week when we talked about her book, A Way Out. And A Way Out is about a little girl turns into a woman. She was abused as a child, abused as a wife, and then found a way out. And we're going to talk about that today. We talked about the abuse last week, so today we're going to talk about how to get out. Now, Janice, welcome again to the show.
Really nice to be here.
And when we originally started talking, I had asked you, why do women put up with this type of treatment? And you said mostly it's like a lack of self-esteem. Does somebody get out of that? How do they get the self-esteem to move forward instead of being treated like a slave?
When you read the book, you'll discover the steps Alexandra takes. And in some ways, those steps have been predetermined, but she doesn't realize that for quite some time. It begins with a desire, a goal to make something of herself. That desire is actually born out of her refuting how her mother looks at her, how her mother treats her. So she establishes goals that she likes to achieve. And the book really begins where she starts talking about where she wants to go to school. She doesn't want to go to the local high school. She has thoughts of wanting to go to a different school, a school that might challenge her more, might give her different opportunities and experiences. So there's something within Alexandra that says, this isn't all that there is. So I'm not sure if it's a self-esteem issue as much as it's a desire to move out of that situation she finds herself in, establish goals for herself, and move towards those goals. And what you see is that it takes a step at a time. Sometimes those steps are driven by goals that are inappropriate, that are just as harmful to her well-being as the life she's living in her home. And she begins reflection, self-reflection. It's a critical component. Is this really what I wanted to do? Is this really what my life should be? So that's very much a part of her personality. Do all women have that in their personalities? I think they do, if they truly want to examine themselves, look more deeply into who they are. She didn't just define herself by how her mother portrayed her. She defined herself differently, and that was helped by her extended family. Her grandparents saw her differently. Her aunt saw her differently. Her neighborhood friends saw her differently. And so that combined itself into her thinking, well, I'm really not that mistake. I'm really somebody. And she began pursuing who that somebody was. And as I said, she takes steps to define it. That second chapter of the book really talks about a different definition. Doesn't work out quite the way she had thought. Although there's a side trip that she takes, and that side trip is her career, her academic pursuits. And that was always a driving force for her well-being, for her steps to get out.
So what you're really saying then is she had a support system.
She had some of the support system, yes.
You know, so let's just say somebody watching the show has a friend who sees that their friend is being abused. What that person needs to do is to come forward and help them let them know that they're a better person than that and that they can do more.
Well, that friendship is critical, and that friendship in all cases is critical. And you have to take a look at whether or not you're an enabler, or are you really trying to support that person. In those early years, she had girlfriends that really didn't know about what was going on in Alexandra's household. And what she showed her friends, excuse me, what she showed her friends was what she believed herself to be. She was smart, she had a sense of humor, she enjoyed being with friends, and they enjoyed her. Later, you see, particularly when she winds up in an abusive relationship with the spouse, you see other friends who really try to let her know that she's not in a healthy relationship. She really needs to start thinking about not just her own well-being, but now her children's well-being. And those friends are honest and sincere, saying things to her that she really needs to hear, but she may not be in a position at the time to listen. But she does put it in the back of her mind. It's there, and every once in a while it comes out. So those friends, and anyone who is in a relationship that is unhealthy, needs friends to sit them down and say, listen, I think you need to take a look at your life. This is not healthy for you. What you're doing to yourself and what others are doing to you is a road to danger. It's a dangerous road. So Alexandra takes those steps, one step forward, two steps back, and continues that road. And then she's a reader. So she reads, and she reads books, self-help books. Rather than engage in any type of professional counseling, she believes she can handle this all on her own. So she pursues self-help books, and those self-help books start to tell her what she needs to hear. So it's a constant reminder that she needs to do something, but she doesn't. She lacks the courage. She lacks the motivation. And it isn't until her children are in danger that the stark reality hits her, and she needs to do something. And she begins that process.
So being, quote unquote, a mother was what helped her decide, I got to do something about this. And because she saw the danger that her kids were in.
Yes.
I know in reading the book, her spouse thought the kids were his, not theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very foreign to me. I mean, when my wife and I had our kids, they were our kids. And so his attitude was very foreign to me. I was ready to slug him. I mean, the book reads so nice and smooth, and you just get into it. And it was difficult to read sometimes, only because you just get so mad at the guy. I mean, how do you treat people like that? But she finally had the courage to protect her children, and then she went to counseling.
Yes, she serendipity sometimes takes place, and she winds up meeting a counselor in her workplace, and that counselor is pursuing her doctorate and needs to do an internship. And that particular counselor somehow sees through Alexandra's personality, her facade. She sees through it, and Alexandra is uncomfortable in her presence. But then that counselor's internship ends, but the counselor leaves word that maybe you'd like to start acupuncture for her circulation issues. Alexandra accepts that. Okay, that sounds like I can do something about why am I always cold? And fear oftentimes makes people cold if they have other than a medical condition. Fear has a way of lowering the blood pressure sometimes, even raising it, but making the individual cold. So Alexandra says, okay, I'll pursue acupuncture, and it's through acupuncture other symptoms start to appear. And lo and behold, doesn't the acupuncturist say, I have a counselor I think you need to talk with. And it's the exact same counselor that she met up with, who was doing previously her internship. And this particular counselor is a master in hypnosis therapy. Now, Alexandra starts to explore that very tenuously, not so sure she wants to engage in this. And that is a major step forward when she makes the telephone call and the counselor says, I've been waiting for you to call for a couple of years. So it's this surprise of, oh, now what am I getting myself into? I mean, I'm making progress, but fear is very much a part of her dynamic, but she knows she has to do it. So she does it. She meets up with the counselor, she starts treatment with the counselor, and through the hypnosis therapy, she begins to explore the hidden depths of the personality, the hidden depths of the abuse, and has to deal with that pain and that suffering. But she knows she's getting better. She knows she's getting healthier. She sees it in the way she's treating her children. She sees it in her own career. She's starting, little by little, to walk through that door. And she's approaching the door. She's opening the door. And she's just about ready to step out when other events start to take place. I don't want to give the whole book away.
No, don't do,
But it's a step at a time, a process at a time. And you can see you're getting healthier. She's getting healthier. And that is a step upon a step upon a step.
So in continuing this path to what I would call recovery, there's got to be something else.
There is. There is. And it's through the counselor. She starts to get a sense of a higher power. There's somebody out there who wants her to survive more than she wants to survive. And Alexandra's meeting with her Savior is a major step forward. Her beginning to believe that there is a God, and her emergence into faith and acknowledging faith playing a part in her destiny is so significant. And it is through that she actually does walk through that door and looks back. The journey isn't over, but she knows she has found her way out. She now has a companion, and that companion is that higher power. It is that God. And as I write her second story, her next journey, which is a way forward, she really does discover the power of faith and the power of God, not only in healing, but in moving you forward. And people have to be aware of that. Women, men who are in these dire relationships need to see the importance of a higher power in helping heal the hurt, helping heal the suffering.
It's interesting because whether you're Catholic, Protestant, Muslim, Jewish, take your pick, it doesn't matter. I have seen a number of prayer books, and they all say pretty much the same thing. And the rabbi, priest, minister, whatever, their teachings are all very similar, and they all have that message that you are worthy of having a good life. And they give you that kind of support.
You're worthy, you're valuable, you've been created in a way to have and fulfill the promise. But it's not all roses. We know that through suffering, one oftentimes looks to the higher power for help. Whether we say it in an "oh my God," or "Jesus save me," or "God help me," there's something within our being that we know exists. It's just a matter of whether or not we want to believe it and follow it. And Alexandra struggles with this. Sometimes she reads prayer books, as you call them, inspirational journals, and they pull her through the difficult times. It's not a garden walk.
No, it seems like anything worthwhile is not easy to get there.
That's right.
You've got to work at it.
That's right.
And at least Alex found a way to work for it, or a reason. The reason was her children. And you always want a better life for your kids. And she had the courage and the wherewithal to say, I need to do this, but it's not only for me, but it's for them.
She had courage, but she also had friends. She also had a support system. And as you read in A Way Out, she begins to acquire new friends who now sustain that progress, help further that progress by their belief systems, by their faith. But I don't want to give too much more away.
That's the incentive to buy the book, by the way. But I have to tell you, I have the book. This is my copy. I'm almost done with it now. It's a long book. It reads very well, very easy. It's like a novel. You really get into it, and it's well worth the purchase. It's well worth reading because you learn a lot from it. And by learning from it, I mean, like I say, for me, it was more, I can't believe people treat other people this way. But people do. And it helps you to recognize some of the symptoms so that you can help somebody else. And there could be nothing more worthwhile than helping somebody else get through the kind of trauma that Alex went through.
And that was the intent. The intent is for the book to get into the hands of those who are suffering. And the more I have speaking engagements or book signings that talk about this, I can't tell you how many women will come up to me and say, I'm just so glad you wrote this. I'm just so glad you've taken the veil off of this hidden world. And some will tell me about what they're struggling with, their children or their grandchildren. And I've been just hearing more stories. This whole concept, I think we mentioned last time, this whole idea of bullying and what is happening to young people through the social media system, where people are just cruel to one another. So the self-esteem of our children is being hurt. And too often I'm hearing these stories, and it pains me, that we need to tell these stories more, and we need to say that there is healing. You don't have to live in this environment. You don't have to take that abuse.
You don't deserve that abuse. Yeah. And that's
good point.
That's one of the keys from my perspective is people don't deserve what she went through. And I mean, I've seen some instances in some people, and you know, not many, fortunately, but it does exist. And it seems like we as a society choose not to recognize it.
Well, I think that we're moving in a direction where we don't really recognize humanity. I think we've become really immune to the human element. And I'm not exactly sure, it's far beyond me to analyze it, but there's just a lack in what I see in terms of that positive human relationship.
It's a lack of respect.
Self-respect begins, and then it's projected.
But you know, even in today's world where, and I hate to bring up politics, but you have a right to disagree with somebody. That doesn't make them a bad person. And in the political world today, it seems like if you don't agree with the other guy, then you're not a good person. You don't have the right to disagree. And that's, so our politicians seem to make it easier to be difficult with people.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I know that it's difficult to have a difference of opinion and share that opinion. And sometimes it silences the individual, which is another form of abuse, when you're silencing somebody else because you don't agree with them. And in Alexandra's case, I'll bring it back to the book, her mother silenced her. She didn't have an opinion. She silenced Alexandra's brother. He also suffered from, no, you can't think that. I mean, there's a phrase in the book that her mother uses, you don't do it that way. You have to do it the right way. And when questioned what the right way was, it was Mom's way. Alexandra's mother's way was the only way. And so that silence smothered her, and smothered her significantly throughout. And she doesn't find her voice until much later.
Yeah, and that, she suffered a long time because of that. And it just, that's what really bothered me, in reading the book. It's just, life is short enough as it is. And to have somebody that, brought up in that way. So here's the question. I'm thinking to myself, what we don't have is an education system that can help people. Like, maybe there should be in the high school here, a course on bringing up kids. Because I think people just don't think about it. And when you have a kid, sometimes it's too late. But give students an idea of what it is to be a parent. Does that make sense to you?
Well, it does. It's just a delicate area because sometimes one person's way of parenting is not another person's way of parenting. And it is a self-discovery. I think we learn from, how our parents treated us. In the book, again, Alexandra is able to see her parents' relationship, but she's also able to see her grandparents' relationship, some of her girlfriend's parents' relationship. And she sees that those relationships, there is one common denominator. There's one real foundation that distinguishes a healthy relationship from an unhealthy relationship, and that you mentioned earlier is respect. Love and respect. And you have to have it. It has to start with oneself. And then you have to look at who you fall in love with. And what is that relationship built on?
And at that point, we have to leave it. But I hope that you got something out of these two interviews with Janice, because it's a major issue. And we need to learn, read the book. It's available at the Beverly Farms Library, you said?
Yeah, Beverly Farms and I are having a conversation. It's available through Author House Publications. I can do book signings. I have a A.G. Mara 47. It's her book. It's her life. And it's one way of trying to get that life, healthy life, out to everyone.
Well, thank you for being on the show.
It's been wonderful.
And I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time.